Okay, so yesterday, last time on Essentials, what we dealt with is story and data. Anybody remember that? Story and data. The way we perceive things, the things that we say, the impact and the power of what we say, how it reverberates for generations to come. That's quite amazing. Many of us think, like, what's the big deal? I just said something. What does it really matter? Well, in this case, it mattered that an entire generation died, at least 10 of them, quite a painful death. Torah is intense. Es bastante intense, pero no intense. It just seems to be intense if a person doesn't realize what it is, right? As does 40,000 watts or volts, when you touch it in Jurassic Park. But that's not intense. Neither is drinking cyanide bringing one's death, because we understand that that is a reaction. So too is the idea of the spiritual world. Spirituality is quite intense. It's quite real. But again, it's not intense, right? I want to make that clear. For those who have heard me say this the past 3 days, I've been reiterating this point, and I just want to get it across at least one more time for all those out there, and all those out there, okay? And that's the following. That's the following: to recognize the fact that Judaism is not intense. Judaism is not intense. Really, nothing is intense if you are used to it. If you are not used to it, it's intense, right? That's everything in life. Things are intense if you're not used to them, and they're not intense if you are used to them. Does that make sense? Yeah. Perhaps even if you got used to fire, it would be intense to sit in it for hours on end. So maybe that's not completely accurate, but you get the point of what I'm getting across, perhaps. So let's just, let me give you the example, and then we'll get into today. The example that we gave, that we discussed thus far many a time is, if you drink cyanide, and we're talking about how much of it? I wish I actually knew the real number, but I'll make up like I do. 0.0000004% cyanide, you will die. Whoa. Why such a I'm standing here for you. This is hard for me, but I'm doing it for you. Why? No, that's not a second. Why such a disproportionate response? You get that? Like, all I did was drink a little bit and I have to die now? Why so crazy? And why such a response to such a little thing? You hear that? But we don't see that as a problem, right? We see that as it makes sense. That amount of poison will kill you. Is that good? Chesky, you got that?
I missed the first bit.
Oh, come on. This is the stuff for you. If you go ahead and you hold on to a power cable which has 1,000,000 volts running through it, you will die. Okay, now, but why? All I did was touch it. It's not like I did something crazy. I just touched a wire. I should touch a wire and die. The answer is that's reality. That's what reality is, right? That's not. Okay, no one walks by and sees, like it says on an electrical box, danger, and then they go, oh, "It's ridiculous that that's dangerous." That's just ridiculous. Everyone knows that that's what it is. That's the reality of life. Spirituality is the same way. A person goes ahead and they mess around with the Lord. That's the same thing as messing around with the Lord with electricity. God also created electricity. I don't know if you guys are aware of that. God created electricity as well. And if you mess around with electricity, there's a response. If you mess around with the idea of spirituality, there's a response. And it's also positive. A person goes and pays $1. They get a piece of paper. It has a couple numbers on it. Someone throws a bunch of balls in this thing. Those numbers show up, and now the guy wins $300 million. Come on, that's not fair. Why $1 to 300 million? Why should he get that? It's not a matter of fair. It's a matter of that's just what it is. Yeah, that's just the reality. The numbers fell in his favor. Therefore, he gets the money. It's true in physical. It's true in this world. It's true in spiritual. You do a mitzvah. You follow the Torah. You do the right thing. Who you're going to get mad cash. Mad cash. Talking about cash. You don't even know what cash is. You think it's nothing is, like the Mishnah says, we discussed all this. In this week's Perek, the 4th chapter, Perek Yavos, all of this world doesn't equal up to the amount of pleasure you get for 1 second in the next world. 1 second, un segundo. Un segundo en el cielo. 1 second in the world to come, bam! That's more than anything you can imagine. Imagine pleasure. Imagine it. Well, stop thinking of that. But I'm saying, but imagine pleasure, yeah? Okay, just whatever your pleasure you can imagine. It's nothing. It pales in comparison. Oh, and how sad it is when we miss the point of that this world is just a corridor. It's just a corridor. This is just a pathway. Stop living in the hallway, people. And let's recognize what life is really about. Let's start getting into it. Yeah. Let's understand what Judaism is. Understand what God is. Understand what it means to have a relationship with the Creator of the world. I'm drawn to tell you the following statement, which I won't be following so forthcoming, but I will tell you in a couple of moments, hopefully, what I wanted to get into yesterday. But what I want to get across here is that understand what is Judaism, what is Yiddishkeit, what is Judaism. Oh, how we've done this so many times and how it needs to be done every day because we forget. Mesilas Yesharim writes in the introduction, nothing I'm going to tell you is new. You know it already, but you forget. You forget what it is. How many times we hear things and we're like, wow, that's a good idea. I should change my life in that direction. I should eat better. I should exercise. I should invest my money a certain way. I should treat people a certain way. I should do X, Y, Z. And then like a year later, you find that you wrote that down. You find that paper that you wrote it on. You're like, wow, this is really good. I should have done this. And I should now. And then a year later, you find it again and you forget it and you remember like, oh yeah. Let's remind ourselves, what's Judaism? What is Judaism? So I can tell you what a lot of people say Judaism is. Judaism is, don't do this, don't do that, don't do this, don't do that, don't do this, don't do that, do this, don't do this, don't do that, do this, don't do like that, do it like this, and don't do like that, do it like this. That's okay, you did it right. But everything else you did wrong, and do it like this in hell and heaven. That's what Judaism is, right? Isn't that Judaism? Isn't Judaism beautiful? Yeah, but but I think that's how people see it, right? How do we see Judaism? I was talking with someone recently who told me he never knew what Orthodox Judaism was. He grew up Orthodox. He grew up observant, whatever word you want to use here. He grew up frum. He grew up religious. But he never knew what it was. He always looked at it. He told me this the other night. He said, I always looked at it like something that like you kind of sort of have to do and you gotta like, you do it to get it out of the way, but like you don't really, it's not really your life. You know what I mean? It's like you do it to get out of the way. Depending on your background, you'll understand what I'm about to say now. But unfortunately, let's say to a religious Jew, what's like the greatest time of their life or their day? The greatest time of the day, like what's the best thing, is like when you've already prayed mincha and you're pariv, right? Which means that I don't have to think about praying because I fulfilled my obligation, and I'm pariv so I could eat any food I want, right? It's where I don't have the obligations or anything going on. And that's how people look at sometimes Judaism, is this religion of you got a book, and this is what you do, and this is what you don't do. Am I accurate in that there are those who think of Judaism in such a way? Has anyone ever thought of it in such a light? Yes or no? Yeah. What do you say, yes or no? Yes. Yeah, what do you say, yes or no? What do you say, yes or no? Have you ever looked at it in your own life in such a way? In your own life, have you ever looked at it a little bit restrictive, a little bit as, do this, don't do that, and that's what Judaism is about. It tells you what to do and what not to do. What about you? What do you say? Yes. Yeah, what do you say? Yeah. What you say, Chesky? What do you say? No. Ooh. What? But in a positive way. Did you ever think of it like that? Oh, because you didn't even know before. So you went from nothing to everything. Right? Beautiful. That's a way to do it. Don't burn out. Don't burn out, right? Like, I'm not there yet, right? Don't judge me. One day, Be'ez Hashem, right? But you understand, do we look at it? The Bali Tshuva, the people that become observant, depends on where you're coming from, but a lot of times you find them, they don't look at it always like, don't do. They look at it like everything's exciting for them, right? And it's always fun to have a Bal Tshuva come for Shabbos. Like, I go wash my hands for Netilas Yadayim. I'm okay, wash your hands. Twice on your right, twice on the left, up to the wrist. Don't be cheap. Some say three. Whatever it is. You go up to, you wash your hands, right? You got to do what you got to do. So everyone go, you wash your hands. About Tshuva is like, I have to wash my hands. They go twice on the right, twice on the left, up to the wrist, don't be cheap, yay! And then they sit down, and no talking because we washed. We're not allowed to talk. And then they get all into it, it's all exciting, and you think they lost their mind. You think they're crazy, right? A person, if anyone here comes from a secular background and you have a friend or a relative who became observant, you probably think they're off the rocker. They're out of their mind. And by the way, you may be right for some of them, but the idea is that sometimes you think they're crazy. What are they doing? Why would they put these restrictions on themselves? You can't do X. Why would they want to do other things you can't, and we must do Y? That's crazy. They are nuts. And the answer is perhaps, but perhaps not. Perhaps like you just don't have an understanding of what Judaism is. Maybe you just don't get it. Maybe you just don't get it. Has there ever been something in your life that you thought was crazy, and then when you understood it, you're like, oh, wait a minute, that makes a lot of sense. I thought it was crazy, but it really makes a lot of sense. And then you start doing it, and others think you're crazy? And he says, yeah, I think I'm crazy, but that's the way it is. I'm going to go along with it. It's not, what am I going to do? I'm going to do what I think is right, and this makes sense. This is truth. You figure out what truth is and you start doing it, and people think you're nuts. I know personally, besides the little incident with the chocolate bar this morning, that I try to eat healthy, at least the past week and a half. No. It was rosemary, so it was like chocolate on the outside, nugget in the middle. Not those type of nuggets, but it was a chocolate. It was really. Say the truth, it's a little hard for me because it's whatever. I was looking for Pesach Zman. I'm more of a fan of Pesach Zman. That's the truth. So another type of chocolate with like the wafer in the middle, whatever. I couldn't find it, so I just went with the rosemary because it was the old one I had as a kid. In any event, I try to diet, but I used to look at people that are health nuts. I used to look at them like they are absolutely crazy. Do you know that eating white flour is worse than smoking? So I was like, all right, so I guess I should start smoking, right? What is that? What does that mean it's worse than smoking? You guys are out of your minds. You know what it does to you? Do you know what carbs are? Carbs are so terrible. Do you know what oil is? Oil breaks. You know what trans fat is? I was like, I don't know. Could you pass it, please? Right? You know, right? We have they're nuts. But then when I learned about this stuff, I'm like, hey, you know what it is? I still eat it. But I was like, yeah, it is. It is. It makes sense. It makes sense what these people are saying. I thought they were crazy, but they're really not crazy. Okay, let's talk about Judaism for a second. Judaism is crazy, isn't it? Because what's Judaism? It's these rules of do and don't, and yes and no's and whatever. What's Judaism? Oh, it's Judaism. What's Judaism? Come on. Tell me.
One opinion they told me it's a way of life.
That's nice. I like that. It's a way of life. What's Judaism? That was a good answer, and it was honest. I like that. Qu'est-ce que dire? No? Qu'est-ce que dire? Judaism.
What I want it to be.
Okay, good. So for you, it's whatever you want it to be. I hear that. Yeah. What's Judaism?
It's the best part of my life.
Oh.
I discovered it.
Oh, yes.
I enjoy it every day.
This is what I think.
My grandchildren black-hatted, and I enjoy them.
Oh, bunch of Schwarzes. I hear.
How they feel, it's the best.
I hear.
They're so different.
You know, you remind me of Folger's coffee.
No.
The best part of waking up is Judaism and black hats. Right?
Because I know what was before, and
okay.
it was different.
I got you. Yeah, it was tea. It wasn't coffee.
It was bad tea.
It was bad tea. It was burnt tea. Not enough sugar. What's Judaism?
That which makes you happy and angry at the same time.
That's a good one. That one makes you happy and angry at the same time. You know, that's really beautiful that you said that. That's very interesting. I like how you said that. Wow. What's Judaism? Emunah. What does that mean? Belief. Judaism is belief. Is that right? Interesting. Hey, Guns N' Roses, what's Judaism? Nice try. You ain't getting out of nothing.
It's following the laws that God gave us.
Following the laws that the Lord gave us. Take me down to the paradise city where the grass is green and the Torah is awesome. Oh, won't you please take me home? What do you say? What's Judaism? Repentance. Arrepentimentos. What do you guys say? Tshuva. Yeah, what do you got? A healthy way of life. It's like, you work in marketing? What do you do? What? Medicine. Okay, that's right. Medicine, a healthy way of life. I like that. That's good. What's Judaism, my friend?
A relationship with God.
Woo woo. Yet?
An opportunity.
Opportunity. Did I ask you? What is it?
I think it's a response to Torah and the understanding of Moshe and his Judah function. So it's kind of the same relationship.
Same as Pixie here. What do you got? What's Judaism?
Ethical behavior.
Interessant. No. Keins Flingenhafen. Whatever you guys say in Amsterdam. What is Judaism?
Also a relationship with God.
Relationship with God. Bam. Who didn't I get?
Can I ask you?
Yeah, sure. In a minute. What's Judaism?
Frank Sinatra.
Frank Sinatra's Judaism. Maybe Barbara Streisand. I don't know. Oh. So you sound like him over here, right? Whatever your way is. What is Judaism? Pixie, I'm going to say exactly what you said. You know what Judaism is? Judaism is a relationship. That's what Judaism is. So it could be a love-hate. It could be a love-hate, my friend, like you mentioned. I love and hate at the same time, whatever, right? Judaism is a relationship. Now the question is, how do you perceive your relationship? Well, there's so many rules. Whatever. Let me put it in this way. To quote Rabbi Ben Sion Klatsko, the way that he puts it, I think is so beautiful. He gives an example. It doesn't word it like this. So if it comes out bad, it's from him. No, I'm kidding. It's from me. So if it comes out good, it's from him at least, the model. I totally didn't want to talk about this, but okay, let's do it. I've pressured myself. Has anyone here ever been in a rules before?
What?
Have you ever been in a rules before?
Like a fight?
Rules. Have you ever been in a rules? This doesn't make sense? Have you ever been in a rules? No. Maybe it's an English thing, I don't know. You're from America?
Yes.
Have you ever been in the rules?
I think you're saying bending the rules.
No, have you ever been in a rules?
I'm not sure what you mean.
What does that mean? Come on, help me out here, someone.
What's the definition of rules?
Okay, listen, I get it. Amsterdam, England, Panama. Where are you from originally? Where were you born?
In New Jersey.
You're born in New Jersey?
No, not born.
Where were you born? You don't want to say? Ukraine. So we got that. You guys are off the hook. But Americans, Australia may be awful. Okay?
Have we ever been in an ideological concept? Is that what you're trying to say?
No. Let me. Okay, maybe I'm just not wording it properly. Let me ask you differently. Let me ask differently. Have you ever been in a relationship before? Has anyone been in a relationship? Yes? You've been in a relationship? Are you in a relationship currently? Are there rules in relationships? There are rules in relationships, is that right? How many rules are there?
Too many, which is why I'm not in one.
Too many. Good luck. Good luck. Get the video on that guy. Right now, no, I'm just kidding. Right? And his full name, and please come over. Now, you've been in a relationship before, and there are many rules in a relationship. But let me ask you something. When the relationship is going well, has anyone here ever been in a relationship that was going well? That was going great even? That was going fantastic, even for just a couple of days, even a couple of moments, right? Anyone ever been there before? Now, there are rules in relationships. Some of them are spoken out, some of them are unspoken, some of them you get slapped for. But there are rules, right? If you're in a relationship, you can't just be looking at anyone, right? You can't just look at anyone else, at least when they're paying attention. You can't just be going wherever you want, whenever you want. You can't just do whatever you want, whenever you want. You're now connected with somebody else. Make sense? However, even though when you're in a relationship there are rules, when things are going well, when things are going great, not only do you not mind the rules, you will take more rules upon yourself. You will initiate upon yourself more rules. What am I talking about? Let's speak it out. So I'm going to use you if it's okay as an example. What's your name?
David.
Michael. Stephen. Names have been changed to protect the guilty. Okay, David, question. Full name? No, I'm just kidding. David, you're in a relationship, and your girlfriend, your wife, your whatever significant other is at home, and you're living together, and so obviously you're married, because no one would live with someone unless, right? And basically what happens, you get a phone call as you're on your way back from work, and your spouse says to you, honey, she's Hispanic, honey, I'm hungry. Your wife says that she's hungry. What do you respond?
What would you like to eat?
Good. It's a much better answer than the previous guy who goes, me too, and he hangs up, right? Good, right? I'm hungry. You say, okay, what would you like to eat? So she goes, pizza. You say,
What kind of pizza?
woo! She says, or you say, like, maybe you should be having a salad, honey. I didn't I didn't want to say anything, but okay. But we'll get you pizza one day. Yeah, we'll call it pizza. Oh, no, but so he goes, pizza. What kind? She goes, vegetable. You say?
How many slices would you like?
A pie.
Is that just for you, or are we going to share?
It's just for me, baby, just for me.
Okay, I'll be home in 15 minutes.
Oh, good. You're doing good. You're doing great. Keep it up. What next? Can I supersize you? Would you like a fries with that? Would you like a drink? Do you want something else? Which pizza store? Right now, true or false, for those of you who have been in relationships and at the time when it was going well, you just want to do for the other person. You just want to go and do as much as you can for them. And even if they're like, no, it's okay. They're like, no, you're like, no, I'll go, I'll get for you. And imagine you came home and it's like midnight. It's even after midnight. And what happened? You're about to go to sleep and you're tired and she's like, oh, I'm so hungry. You're like, I'll get you something. You pop up. She goes, no, it's okay. You're like, no, I insist. And she goes, well, in that case, okay, if you can get for me, right? And you're happy. It's your pleasure. You go out with a smile. You're excited to go get it for them. Does this make sense? Everybody with me? When things are going well in your relationship, the rules don't bother you and you will take upon yourself more rules. Have you ever been in a rules before? Everybody get it now? What does it mean to be in a rules? When things aren't going so well in that relationship. And now instead of seeing the relationship as, wow, I can do for you, I would love to do for you, now it's like, ugh, I have to do for you. Those rules become, I can't think of a verb that works with prison. But it becomes that. They become prisoning. That is now the word to be used. Those rules, what's that? Incarcerating. That would actually make sense. You must have gone to an intense school. Right? Incarcerating. And especially if you do the English accent move. I like that. That's cute, right? Because it doesn't matter what you say. You could have said jailing, and it would have worked also, right? But anyway, the point is that they become bonding. I really wanted to say bondage, but that isn't bondaging, right? It makes you feel, whereas once they were inconsequential, they were irrelevant, and of course you followed them and they didn't bother you, you did more, now they become burdensome. Does everybody get that? And what do you say when you're on your way home and your wife calls you and says, I'm hungry? You say?
Me too.
That's when you've already lost it all. Before you lost it, what do you say? I'll get you some food, goodbye. And you fulfilled your obligation. You get it? You've done what you had to do. Your obligation is to fend for and help and whatever, right? So the point is that you have to go and help her. She says she's hungry. You say, okay, I'll get you some food, bye. And you go and you pick it up for her. You fulfilled your obligation. That's what it means when a person lives a life as a Jew and they say, I've prayed mincha. I've prayed the afternoon service. I'm done. I fulfilled my obligation. You know, I got to do this. I'll do what I got to do. People, what's Judaism? It's a relationship. It's a relationship. Now tell me something. When you're in a relationship and things are going well, and assuming you always want them obviously to go well, so what do is you're willing to take upon yourself things in order to make the relationship even better. Does that make sense? What's the best way to make the relationship better? If you want to be able to make the relationship better for this individual, what do you need to do? You need to give. What do you need to give?
Your attention.
You got to give yourself. You got to give attention. But as Rabbi Berger says, what's the right answer? The one I'm looking for. What do you need to do if you want to connect with your wife? What do you need to do if you want to be able to give towards your wife? I can come home and I want to give to my wife, okay? I want to make my wife happy. I want everything great. I want my relationship to be wonderful. So I come home and I buy her a gift. I get her a, what are those little ponies called? My Little Pony. I buy her a My Little Pony and I give it to her. I say, happy anniversary. It's our silver anniversary. I don't know what the numbers are, right? But it's our gold, right? Whatever it is, yeah. We're now. I want to give you this gift. It's from me to you. She goes, what is it? I go, open it. She goes, oh, My Little Pony. What do I need to do to make that gift be awesome? I got to know the other person. Is that right? In order to make the relationship work, if I want the relationship to be amazing, I got to know the other person. Is that right? Does that make sense? So doesn't it make sense to get to know the person a little bit? Get to know the little person, get to know, understand, and learn more and more and more, and get deeper and deeper and deeper. Okay, people, let's talk about Judaism. Judaism is a relationship. When things are great, oh, they're awesome. And you just want to do and do and do and give more and more to the relationship. Let's put Hashem in the picture. Let's put the Lord. Let's put the Maestro del Mundo in the picture. So let's see, you want to have a relationship with God. Anyone who would say no, you're out of your mind. I don't care if you're an atheist, you're still out of your, well, then you're definitely out of your mind. But you're even more out of your mind even if you're an atheist and say, I don't have a relationship with God. In other words, if there were to be a God, would you want to have a relationship with God? What's the question? Would you want to have a relationship with the president of, please no jokes on this one, but with the president of America? Would it make sense to have a relationship? Wouldn't that be a good idea? Wouldn't it work well for you to have a good relationship with the president of the United States? Yeah. Right?
Monica.
What's that?
What if your name is Monica?
Okay, moving along. I didn't know you knew my name. But wouldn't it be worthwhile? Wouldn't it be good? Wouldn't it be good to be, I mean, I guess maybe not Venezuela, you know what I'm saying, but like, what do you guys call him? Maduro? What's his name? Maduro. You know Maduro? Maduro. Anyway, the point is that wouldn't it make sense to have a relationship with the president of a company, with people that are high up? Doesn't it make sense to have a relationship with the creator of the world, the one that runs everything, the one that's in charge of everything? Anything you want, he's your man, figuratively. I don't want to get confused with religions here. Anything you need, he's there. Wouldn't that make sense of a relationship? So let's try to see, well, what does God want? What does God want? Now, a lot of times people make a mistake that they want in the relationships, they want to do for somebody, for their spouse, and they do for them, but they do for them on their terms, on their own terms, and they don't do it on the terms of the person they want to have a relationship with, and that breaks down the relationship. If you want to have a relationship with the creator of the world, if you want to have a relationship with me, but you buy me a gift that has to do with you and nothing to do with me, then that doesn't exactly help the relationship. Many of us think, and this is a funny thought, and this is, I question whether I should be, I question things sometimes with what I have in my mind now, and I'm not sharing it with you. I question. But what I want to share with you now, which I question if I should, but I will anyway, is people who say, yeah, I want a connection with God. I want to have a relationship with God. And I have a relationship with God. Really, explain that. Well, I give charity. I have, on Thursday nights, we get together as a bunch of friends and we play guitar and sing Kumbaya, my Lord. Kumbaya. Right? I mean, do you keep Shabbos? No, I don't do Shabbos. Oh. Does the Lord want that from you? Yeah, he says like you should do it, but it's okay. I mean, it's if you want to. If you don't want to. What about, do you dress appropriately? Well, I mean, I feel I know how to connect with God. I'll connect with God in the way that I want to connect with God. Don't tell me how to do it. Do you realize what you just said? By saying, I will connect with God in the way that I know how to connect with God. That means you're saying, I'm going to have a relationship with my wife in the way I want to have a relationship with my wife, and not the way my wife wants me to have a relationship with her. How's that relationship going to go?
Horrible.
Not too well. It's a nice way of saying it. Yeah? Not going to go too well. We got to figure out, well, what does God want from us? Oh, yeah, well, it's a one-way relationship. It's crazy because I do everything for God, but what does he do for me? This is my favorite part. People say, okay, fine, I'll do what he wants, but what's he doing for me? I don't know, maybe giving you a heartbeat every second, assuming you're healthy and you have 60 beats per minute. Maybe for some of you, giving you 2 heartbeats per second. If you're eating a little bit more than you should. What's he doing for you? Are you kidding me? What isn't God doing for you? Anything you have in your life is from God. No, I did it myself. You nuts, you did it yourself. You couldn't lift a finger if God didn't let you. If God didn't let you, you could not even lift your finger. What about the people that are paraplegic and they can't lift their finger? Okay, so he gave them something else. They have a brain. What about the people? Okay, let's deal with us right now. He gave you everything. Anything you have is from God. And God continues to give to you and give to you and give to you. Seems to be a one-sided relationship, you're right. But it seems to be it's from him to us, not us to him. And let's take a look and see, well, what does God want from me? But I don't like these things, the rules that they're telling me to do. I just don't like it. Okay, I get it. You don't have to do it. If you don't want the relationship, so don't have the relationship. That's your call. But understand, like we said, Olam Hazeh Doma Leprosdor, this world is a corridor. The next world is where it's at, baby. That's eternity. And you are building your next world right now. You create the house you want to have. You want to have a shack? You can have a shack. I love when people say, okay, listen. The Mishnah says, Kol Yisrael yesh lehem chelek l'olam haba. Every Jew has a portion in the world to come. Most people don't read the end of the Mishnah. It says, except, and then there's a list. And some of us, the way we build our relationship with God are a lot of them in those exceptions. But let's even say you get into the world to come. You make it. You get that pleasure that there's nothing you can't even compare to this world. Pleasure which is going to blow your mind. But that's fine because you're out of this world already. I get in. So like if I'm getting in, if I'm getting a portion, so why do I have to like build more? Like what's the big deal to build more? I have what I have. I don't need to build any more. He says, are you crazy? Let's be honest. Let's look at this world again to understand the next world. Do you want to understand the next world? Look at this world and see how it works. Every one of your friends is driving a twin-turbo, 6-speed Porsche. And you get yourself a Buick Bonneville, 1987. That is a beauty. Every one of your friends is driving Porsches, Jags, Lamborghinis, okay, even Toyotas, Lexus. For those who aren't familiar, Lexus is Toyota. They just don't tell you, but it is. All of a sudden it's like, man, that's what I have, a Toyota. Yeah. But you're out on your tuition. What car do you own? A Toyota. Right? It's a Lexus, but it's a Toyota. You go ahead and everyone's driving, you're driving a Camry, a 95 Camry. How do you feel? How do you feel everyone's driving these spitzy, unbelievable, nice, cars? You're on the Autobahn trying to push 110 kilometers. And they're going like 1,000 miles an hour. You're like, well, at least I'll survive. Yeah, what are you thinking? What do you think? How do you feel at that moment? Let's be honest. How do you feel if everyone's driving these cars and you're driving like a little whatever? Not good, yeah? I love those. No, it's okay. Gets me from A to B. I'm happy. It has wheels and a steering wheel. I'm good. Baloney. You'd feel like an idiot. You'd feel like an idiot driving this car around. They'd be like, you're like, I'm happy with what I have. Right? But it's not true. You feel jealous. You feel whatever. My friends, you're going to get to the next world. You're going to get in. But you're going to be like by the doorway, and everyone's like behind the curtain, the VIP, like rocking it. You're going to see like lights and things. You're going to be like, what's that? Everyone's like, don't you wish you know? And they're going wild, whatever they're doing back there. And when you open it up, they're eating delicious foods. What were you guys thinking? Anyway, they're eating amazing things, right? They're going to be rocking it up, people. Come on. This is a relationship. Okay, now that brings us to the following idea. So now we could break down an interesting thing, which has nothing to do with the parsha that I was going to talk about. This brings an interesting thing, and that is the following. What does the word? What's your name? Simcha, where are you from? Which area? Bullshit. Simcha, you read Hebrew, I'm assuming. Your name is Simcha, right? Okay, that would have been awkward if I got it wrong. Simcha. What does this word mean? First I'll read it. Mitzvah. What does the word mitzvah mean? Commandment. Pixie, what does the word mitzvah mean? How's your Hebrew? Have you heard of the word mitzvah before? What does the word mitzvah mean?
Deed.
What's that?
A deed.
What is a deed?
Deed.
Like of a house? You have a deed on a house?
No, like,
Oh, so what's a deed? My
it's
sister, a
like
deed?
good,
We call what?
doing good or
A good deed.
like a good deed. It's a deed.
It's a good deed or a bad deed?
It's a deed. They could be good deeds and bad deeds.
Oh, so a bad deed, if I punch someone in the face, that's a mitzvah?
Yeah.
Or perhaps not. Like I do many mitzvahs. Right? What's a mitzvah? Come on, Pixie.
It's okay. It's a good deed.
A good deed now. We're on good deed. Is that right? We're getting rid of the idea, okay, you want to call a mitzvah a good deed. Is that right? Ooh. Ooh, look at that. A good deed. Ooh, okay, anyway. So you want to call it a good deed. I never did that before, right? I just thought of that. Okay, so this is a mitzvah. What's a mitzvah?
Well,
Don't get esoteric on me. I want translation of words.
translation of word. It's a fulfilling God's will.
Fulfilling God's will. What is a mitzvah?
I think I'm going to go with commandment as well.
Commandment for number 2. Excellent. What do you got?
Commandment.
Commandment. That was quick. What's a mitzvah?
What you said God's commandment was
What was that? What's God's commandment?
to fulfill various mitzvahs.
What's a mitzvah?
I would say good deed.
Mandiamente? A good deed, you would say. You know what the word commandment is? Mandiamente.
Yeah.
So what's a mitzvah? A good deed? So let's look at the root of the word. The word mitzvah comes from the word, it connects from the word tzav. What is it? Tzav? Command. Tzav is a command. So why do people say good deed? It is a good deed to do a mitzvah. However, a mitzvah doesn't mean a good deed. You get that? Is that clear? The word mitzvah doesn't mean good deed. It is a good deed to do a mitzvah. And when people do good deeds, there is a mitzvah, there's a commandment to do good deeds. And therefore, when you do good deeds, you've done a mitzvah. But the word mitzvah doesn't mean good deed. Is that clear? There's a mitzvah to put on tefillin. It's not called it's a good deed. Unless you're just saying anything God says is a good deed, right? What else does the word mitzvah mean? So on the one hand, it means commandment. Number 2, there's another way, and this is where you're going to see the difference between what Judaism is, the way you thought it was, and what now we're getting what it is. A commandment. That falls into the guidelines. I've asked you what's Judaism and a way of life and these things, but practically speaking, prácticamente, we're saying that the idea of Judaism is rules. So if you look at Judaism as rules, in other words, like do this and don't do that, it's a book of rules, the Torah, etc. So then you translate the word mitzvah as commandment. But if you look at Judaism not as rules, but as a relationship, and that, yes, there are rules within it, but it's not what Judaism is, so then the word mitzvah no longer looked at as commandment, it takes on a whole new meaning. The word mitzvah also comes in the Gemara, it talks about, it's Aramaic, it comes from the word savta, not to be confused with babushka, which means savta or grandmother, but savta with a tzadi, which means a connection point. A connection. What is Judaism? Judaism is a relationship. How do you build that relationship? Through various things which you do, which will help connect you. What are those things? Those are called mitzvahs. It now no longer is looked upon as, I have to do this. It's looked upon as, wonderful, I can build my relationship with the creator of the world. What do you say?
If you're commanding someone to do it, it implies they don't want to do it. If someone does it on their own volition, that's following like a rule or law. Command sounds as though they're automatically resistant.
Command sounds as if they're resistant, so stop at a red light.
That's a law or a rule. A command is like...
What's the difference between a rule and a command? It's not a command. Commandment. A commandment is a rule. A command, you're speaking in the tense of...
Army commander says, jump in the way of the bullet, so the other guys can get through. That's command.
Correct. Yeah. Army guy says, tie your shoes. It's also a command.
Right.
Right?
Right.
You also want to tie your shoes.
True.
So it's not exclusive to things you don't want to do. Right? Understand, people, is that, yes, it's true. I'm not neglecting number 1. I'm just adding to number 1. And I'm pointing out that when you're in a relationship with your wife and you're in love, you don't even look at other women. When you're in love, when you are enthralled by your spouse, I mean, hopefully you get this. If not, good luck to whoever you're marrying, or whoever you were married to, whoever you were married to. But if a person goes out and they're just deeply in love, certainly this works for women. I know that I don't want to get into, but certainly this works for women. That a woman who's in love with their spouse doesn't even look at the rest of the world. A person who's in love with their spouse, I mean, even stretch it to a man. When a man is things are going fantastic. Could be not, but let's take a look in this angle. Like you don't even look at something else. Is there a rule not to look at somebody else when you're married? Yeah. There's even a rule. But you're not doing it necessarily because of the rule. You're doing it because you're in love with your spouse. So my point is that it's true that there's an element of command. But then your relationship with God and relationship with Judaism will be living on that level. It's going to be like, oy vey, I have to. Judaism, my friends, is awesome. Judaism is incredible. Judaism is like, oh no. It's like, oh yes. Oh yes. It's just we're missing what it is every day, and we forget this. And I want to tell you something. Even if you think you didn't know this, you did know this. And if you grew up observant, there's a reason why you didn't know this, because unfortunately some of us are raised not like this. We're raised more number one than we are number two. We're raised in must do this, must do that. I'm telling you from my experience growing up, it's more of an idea, growing up observant, it's an idea of like you have to, you must, it's this, it's commandments, etc. And not enough emphasis perhaps at times on how incredible it is. And how amazing, how loving it is. And how awesome it is. And then we grow up thinking like, oh, I have to? And especially if someone grew up Reform or conservative. You know exactly what I'm talking about. If anyone here grew up Reform or conservative, went to Sunday school, Hebrew school. Got to go to Hebrew school and you got to learn your parsha, your bar mitzvah. Has anyone done that? Anyone grew up in such a world? Yeah? Tell me if this is accurate. For a Jewish boy raised in a Reform home where they are going towards bar mitzvah is essentially graduation from Judaism. You must sit and learn your portion, and you got forced to go to Hebrew school, and at 13, it's kind of like, all right, now you're done. And it's the culmination, and now you're done with Judaism. In Orthodoxy, that's when it starts. And what ends up happening is that then all the kids end up hating it anyway, because like, I had to go to the school I didn't even want to go to. I'm like, thank God I'm done. Then they send their kids to it also. And then my friend who works in a Sunday school in America somewhere, he goes, why does this guy told me the following, one of my good friends, he started a Sunday school, a Hebrew school, where it's not like this, it's not torture. The kids actually love it. And the kids love it so much that the parents started coming, and they started the Sunday school for the parents also. And the parents are now reliving their childhood in a way which is more positive now. But when this one guy asked, if you hated Sunday school so much, why are you sending your kids? He said, because I had to suffer through it, they're going to also, right? It makes a lot of sense. But I understand that it's not like that. It's amazing, it's beautiful, it's incredible, it's a way of life which builds a relationship to the nth degree. So at the end of the day, is Judaism intense? The answer is, yeah, sure, it's unbelievably intense if you don't understand what it is. Just like touching 40 million watts is intense if you don't get what it is. And you realize, okay, maybe it will have an impact, but it makes sense. Drink cyanide, makes sense. Do a mitzvah, changes worlds, changes this world and the next world. You affect the whole entire world through doing a mitzvah in a positive way or a negative way. That's it. Makes sense. Same God that created electricity created mitzvahs. People, therefore, I ask you, do you want to live a life of rules? Do you want to live a life of relationship? The answer is it's up to you how you perceive it. God's already doing his part. He's given you everything you need, and he's continuing to do it. The question is, do we stop and think, well, what does God want from this? And let me take a look and see how I can work towards that. Any questions, comments, stories, jokes, attacks? Please keep them verbal and physical.
What would your response to the following thing be? What can we do for God? Answer nothing. What would your response to that be?
My response would be correct and incorrect, like everything in Judaism.
Okay.
In other words, what can you do for God? Ultimately, you're right. God's perfect. Perfection doesn't change. Perfection means nothing. Not relative perfection, absolute perfection. But when we say, what can you do for God? We mean, ultimately, what can you do for you optimally? The optimal thing you could be doing for you is to be doing for someone else. Who's that somebody else in this case? God. God really is telling you, here's the funny thing, you're right. You should be doing it for you. The best way of being selfish is being selfless. God says, I want to give you the greatest pleasure you can ever have. And you're like, yeah, but you're restraining all these restrictions. I can't sleep around with whoever I want, eat whatever I want, do whatever I want, whenever I want, however I want, all these restrictions. And God said, don't you get it? These restrictions are in order to give you the greatest life. So ultimately say, what are you doing for God? If you got pretty deep, the answer is nothing. If we're speaking it out in human terms, the question is, how are we focusing on? Is it focusing on ourselves or focusing on God? And therefore we are doing for God, so to speak. But ultimately we're doing for ourselves. Recognize that idea when your kid asks you for that brownie, and they want their 17th and their 21st and their 50th brownie, and you hold back and don't let them have it. And they're thinking, why are you holding back and letting me have pleasure in life? When your kid wants to just run around free in the street, on a highway, and you're holding them back from enjoying life, when your kid wants to go ahead and just ingest whatever they want to ingest and never sleep and just jump off very high places with sharp objects underneath, and you're holding them back from enjoying their life, what's the reality? You're giving them guidelines to get the most out of life. All right, people, been a pleasure. See you when I see you. If I don't do it, have a wonderful day. Bye-bye.